Moving to Israel? Awesome. Acclimated to life here? Not as awesome. Welcome to Olim Toolbox Talks, tips and tricks to help you acclimate to your life here in Israel.
Welcome to another edition of Olim Paveway's Olim Toolbox Talks. My name is Sid Slifko. I will be presenting tonight. The subject is 7-step Aliyah / Klita program for Olim, a practical guide. But let me preface our discussion tonight with this mnemonic that I borrowed from the world of auto advertising. If you've been watching automobile advertising, you sometimes hear when they talk about how much power you're going to get from the car. The mnemonic I'm going to use tonight is YMMV, which translates as your mileage may vary, because no two Aliyah experiences are alike. So I can't tell you that on the day after you land, you have to choose a Kupat Cholim, an HMO, then you have to open up a bank account, and then you have to enroll in an Ulpan, etc. All these things are important, and you're going to have to do it, but each of you has a different set of needs. Your mileage may vary, YMMV, remember that. What I can do is outline a 7-step Aliyah Klita program that goes a long way towards Aliyah Klita success. And when I'm done, I will post it on the Olim Paveway Toolbox WhatsApp so that tomorrow you can reference it as well. And if you need a link, you'll find it in the chat at the side of your window, as well as a chat to our website. So the 7-step Aliyah Klita program. First things first, number one, you need a Sherpa. Now, for those of you who don't know what a Sherpa is, a Sherpa refers to a member of the Tibetan people living on the high southern slopes of the Himalayas in the eastern Nepal area, who are known for providing support for foreign trekkers and mountain climbers. Now, in today's vernacular, as well as in our vernacular specifically, it refers to any guide or climbing supporter hired for an expedition, regardless of whether they're from the Sherpa ethnicity or not. Because of this usage, the term Sherpa has become a slang byword for any type of guide or mentor. A Sherpa will help you find and set up a home base in Israel, which is so essential to your Aliyah and Klita process. Finding housing, furnishing your housing, learning how to pay local bills, which include Arnona, which is a tax, paying for utilities. All these are foundational tasks. So you need to enlist help from seasoned Olim, specifically Olim with a positive attitude, who've been through this process so that they can be your Sherpa and guide you through the maze of logistics. And they can also help you prioritize what it is that you need to do. Now, if you go, for example, through Nefesh B'Nefesh, there are a lot of things that you get to do on your way to Israel, including getting the temporary Tu'udat Zehut, ID card, getting a Tu'udat Mavar, a form that allows you to travel outside of Israel. Not everybody gets a chance to do that. Sometimes you get a SIM card for your phone. Again, not everybody does that. All these little details differ from Ole to Ole. So I can't tell you specifically what you need to do, but I can tell you, have a guide, have a Sherpa, somebody who can take you by the hand, who can help you navigate this, is a very important first step in making your Aliyah or Klita successful. You can always find a good Sherpa through our Olim Paveway website, and the link, as I mentioned, is in the Zoom chat. So they'll help you to do all the heavy lifting as you proceed on your Aliyah Klita journey. So that is number one in the 7-step process. Number two in the 7-step process, and this is equally important, embrace the Israeli week. Now, coming from America, as I did, for me, Sunday was a day off, and my week began on Monday. And it lasted from Monday through Friday, and then there was Shabbat. In Israel, and I know that you understand this intellectually, but it's an idea that you have to internalize as well. The week begins on a Sunday, with Shabbat offering some precious time to recharge. In addition to that, which not everybody realizes, there's also Friday. And Friday can be a time not only to cook and to clean and prepare, which is what I generally tend to do, but also to recharge, to meet friends, to do fun things. Now, I remember when I was back in the States how stressful it was on a Friday when I had to hustle to get home from work before Shabbat. Friday afternoon came around, my non-Jewish boss would remind me, Sydney, it's getting close to Shabbat. It's time for you to go home. She used to tell me that I have to go home for Shabbat. We don't have that here. Here, we have enough time to prepare over the course of the day. So adjusting your mindset to this rhythm is essential. So remember, when you're moving to Israel, the important thing is to embrace the week. Plan your week proactively, balancing your work, your errands, your rest. Believe me, you're going to need it. And use the Friday as much as possible. Go to the local cafe, sit down, have a cup of coffee with a friend, take some time to visit a place you haven't seen, participate, volunteer in some charity organization work. It's always a good thing to use that Friday to recharge your batteries and well as to get ready for the Shabbat to come. Number 3, and this is equally important and will go a long way towards getting you into the successful perspective of making Aliyah. And here I'm talking about learn the Israeli culture and learn the Israeli mindset. Israelis value frankness. Israelis value frankness, direct communication, the idea of community, and flexibility. There's also an interesting phenomenon in what sounds like Israeli one-upmanship to the untrained ear. For example, after you finally get through your Ulpan and you learn how to say things like Boker Tov, Manishma, don't be surprised that when you greet an Israeli with your newly mastered Boker Tov, they will answer Boker Mitsuyan. The first time you hear that, you may get thrown off. But I want you to understand, Israelis are not trying to do you one better. They're not trying to prove that they are smarter than you or get a jump on you. It's just plain Israeli wordplay. Israelis love wordplay. So that's something you have to get used to. When you speak to an Israeli, realize that they're not trying to get to you. They're not trying to prove that they're smarter. They're just trying to have fun. And when you're working in Israel, forget casual Fridays. Think casual everydays. Conversely, when it comes to Israeli communication, forget the idea of first and last name usage. That's basically tossed out the window. In Israel, you'll find that a worker will call their boss by their first name, and friends will address each other by their family names. I have to confess, it took me a while not to get insulted when an Israeli called me Slivko instead of Sydney. But that's not an insult. That's just the way they speak to each other. And you can learn to do that the same way. And understanding these differences can help prevent misunderstandings and communication. This is part of the Israeli culture. As I said before, it's frank, it's direct, and it's very laid back. And it can also be very exacting, but by the same token, take it with a grain of salt, because that's the way Israelis tend to work. Number 4, be flexible, but be persistent. Flexibility in Israel is not only a valuable trait, but it's also a survival skill. Try to see challenges here as opportunities to grow. And this goes hand in hand with tenacity. Klita requires adapting to new norms, such as bureaucracy that you don't understand and language barriers that you're going to run into. And I've been here for close to 30 years, and there are still language barriers. The ability to pivot when things don't go as planned, when you miss out on certain things, it's vital. So be prepared to be flexible. But that doesn't mean that in bending, you have to bend over. You do have to draw some lines. Because while there's such a thing as the benefit of the doubt, you also have to determine when the benefit is too costly to you. You're entitled to satisfaction and respect. And if you're unsure of when the benefit costs too much, then you have to find out from somebody whether or not they're going too far. That's another help that the Sherpa can provide. You can find out from them whether you are giving away too much or you are allowing too much. If you're trying to reach somebody and you make phone call after phone call after phone call, at that point you can say, I've already done enough and I've already put myself out. And then it's on them and not on you, because you don't want to be taken advantage of no matter which country you're living in. And don't let language barrier and don't let flexibility get in the way of your self-respect. Number 5, and this I think is probably one of the most vital things. Find humor in the klita chaos. Laughter always lightens a load. From language faux pas to misadventures in bureaucracy, keeping a sense of humor will help you endure. Israelis appreciate humor, and they're generally not afraid to laugh at themselves. And there's no need to double back out of embarrassment. In fact, humor is a great way to bond over shared experiences. And sometimes it seems that Israel has more than its quota of shared absurdities. And if you point it out, they'll know you get it, and they'll be able to empathize with you. And while I'm talking about that, let me add one more important point, which is a whole nother topic in and of itself. Learn Hebrew. Hebrew is not only another facet of Israeli humor, but it's a major door opener for connecting with Israeli life and Israelis. Don't be intimidated. If an Israeli comes back to you or you're trying to speak to them in your broken Hebrew, and they'll say, well, if you don't understand what I am saying, I can always speak to you in your mother tongue. I get that a lot because I usually speak Hebrew with my New Jersey accent. Take that comment with a sense of humor and enjoy the chaos that comes with the klita and the chaos that comes with the language. But above all, make sure that you build a groundwork in Hebrew. My wife learned Hebrew both from her conversational experience and also from watching soap operas on TV. You can do the same thing. There are all kinds of ways to do it. If you can read the newspaper. If you have an opportunity, watch the news. There are all sorts of ways to learn Hebrew, and certainly listen to conversations. And feel free to say whatever you want because it's going to be good for you. Number 6. Make connections and maintain connections. How many of you remember aerograms? Those are those little sheets of paper that you would write all over and fold up and it would already have a stamp and you would send it back to your family in the States. Or many of you who were here years ago may remember lining up to the public phones with your asimon, your little coin with the hole in it, to make phone calls to home. Successful klita is built on connections, past and present. It's important to stay in touch with family and with friends from abroad. Thank God we have the tools today, so more than ever you can do it without any difficulty. Familiar voices and shared memories can anchor you to the past, but they can also help you make the transition to the present. But if not as important, then certainly more so, is to cultivate connections here. Not only am I talking about friends in your building or friends in the neighborhood, but also friends all around the house. For example, learn the name of the guy who runs the falafel stand in your neighborhood. Get to know the school guard or the barista at your coffee shop. And there are also connections to be made online. The local municipalities have matnasim, community centers, many of which have programs for Olim. Practically all communities and all municipalities have WhatsApp groups for local Olim. And there are also Facebook groups for English speakers and for Olim in different communities. You may want to check out, if you have an opportunity, look up Jacob Richman on the internet, and you find that he has mailings that go out to the Olim communities all over Israel. He's been doing this for well over 30 years. He is the expert in this. Check that out as well. Check out whatever Facebook groups, whatever WhatsApp groups, whatever other groups exist, and see what you can find that will help you connect to Olim throughout the country, as well as Israelis and organizations that can help you out. And finally, this is the most important thing, I think. Be patient with yourself. Klita is a process. Celebrate those small victories, whether it's a successful conversation in Hebrew or mastering the bus system. Cut yourself some slack. Make time for yourself as you go through the journey. I'm here almost 30 years. I still consider myself an Oleh Chadash, and I have a lot to learn. Because for me, life is a process of learning. And if you think you know everything, then what else is there to live for? So those are my 7 steps. And the one thing I would say to you is, in closing, is very simple. If you embrace these steps, not only will you survive, but you also thrive in your Klita journey. Every challenge you overcome as you're making the journey towards your absorption strengthens your roots in Israel, and every experience that you have is a new opportunity to grow, to appreciate what you've done, what you've accomplished, and what you can possibly accomplish the longer you stay. So in the words of Hillel, I will say very simply, Zil Gemar, go out and learn, embrace the journey, and be thankful that you're here. And with that, I thank you for coming. I thank you for coming here. And I wish you all a good week and a Klita Tova. If there are any questions, we have a few minutes. Please feel free. If not,
I have a question.
please feel free.
I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
You said that it's very important to learn the Hebrew language, but I know that in Israel, each time they see an English speaker, they try to practice their English on him. How can you avoid that?
I'll let you know when I figure that out. As I said, I've been here for quite some time. I still haven't figured that out yet, but maybe I will. We are creatures of habit, Ofer, and it's very difficult to get out of the habit. So
I have another question.
Yeah.
You were speaking about all the difficulties that they are in Aliyah process and being Oleh Chadash.
Yeah.
But how long did it took you to feel that Israel is your home?
I think my first inkling that Israel was my home, it's something crazy, but I have to say this is what made it work for me. There were 2 instances. First one was after about 3 weeks, I had my first dream in Hebrew. And at that point I said, and I stopped and I said, oh my gosh, I'm speaking Hebrew. And I said to myself, you know what? I guess I'm here. I guess I'm home. I guess I'm getting it. The second instance of when I finally realized that Israel is my home was when somebody asked me directions. to find a street, and I knew exactly where to go. And at that point, I said, "Okay, I'm here. When I can start telling people where to go and not get messed up in my direction giving," and I did it, by the way, in Hebrew. It was very simple. I learned the very simple Hebrew way of giving directions. We all know how it goes, right? Somebody asks you how to get there, and what's the answer? Yashar, yashar. That's exactly what I said. And I was right. That's when I learned I finally made it. And that's what I felt, okay, good. That's a success. That's a success. But again, as I said, I am still an Ole Chadash. After close to 30 years, I am still an Ole Chadash. I am still learning.
But when did you feel that the Israelis gave you felt that you are also an Israeli and not an Ole Chadash?
I'll let you know when that happens.
When the boys went into the army.
Okay, that's my wife talking. When the boys did go into the army, although I have to tell you, when the boys went into the army, that's when I felt like a real Ole Chadash, because they started talking to each other in military jargon, and I totally had no idea what they were talking about. And they're using all these abbreviations, which I still ask them, and they keep saying, "I told you last week, you should have remembered by now." So they make me feel on a daily basis like I just got off the boat. But that's okay. That's okay, because at least I know when I got off the boat, I landed here and not someplace else. And that's a good feeling.
And this is a bit personal, so you don't really have to answer it. But
well, you're Israeli, of course you ask personal questions.
I'm an Israeli, so as I learned today, I have to be very direct.
Yeah.
So eventually, if you look back, first, what made you feel that you, in the first place, that you want to make Aliyah? And second, following question, eventually after you've been here 30 years and you went through all the process and you overcome all the difficulties, eventually, do you think you made the right step?
Because my wife is listening in, I have to say that my motivation for making Aliyah was to meet her. But if my wife were not here, my usual answer is it just seemed like the natural consequence of my life beforehand. I used to tell people that I made Aliyah due to lack of impulse control. My sense is that I made Aliyah because I felt that I would be ultimately safer here, in the sense that I wouldn't have to constantly explain to myself, to other people, what it is that I was doing and why it was that I was doing it. And here, I felt very comfortable in my own Jewish skin. And that was my motivation to come here. This was not any sense of I'm going to change the world. I just wanted to live in a place where I felt like it was me. But when it comes to did I make the right decision? Absolutely, and I say to myself every day. I do believe I made the right decision, and if I had my chances to go back, I would stay here. All things being equal, and even if things were not equal, I would still stay here. There are two questions that I noticed in the chat room, which I'd like to address very quickly, again, because of the time constraint. Number one, what would you do differently if you were making Aliyah? I would take advantage of the organizations that exist nowadays, which didn't exist in my day. When I made Aliyah, there were many things that I had to do on my own, figure things out on my own. Now there are more opportunities for me to get information that I was unable to get without a lot more digging in those days. Again, you've got the organizations like Nefesh B'Nefesh. I have to tell you again. I have to thank Jacob Richmond, who's here in this room, for setting up these wonderful mailing lists, which had a great deal of information, and I was able to glean a lot of stuff and know what was going on. And I was even looking at it when I was back in the States. But that's what I would do nowadays that I didn't do then. Take advantage of the groups that exist that are supportive of Olim, that help make the Aliyah process much better. When it comes to, somebody also raised the question, what are the job prospects while learning Hebrew? I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. You know, what are they? If you're asking for specific job prospects, I can't give you specific job prospects. I can tell you that they are good. You may have to beat the bush a little bit to find out, but you'll find that there are more job boards that are going up all the time, and see what your connections when you come here can do to help you find a job. Go into the Facebook groups, go into a group like Help, was it Help Olim? Help Olim Stay in Israel. I can't remember what it's called. Or somebody wrote, a good place to land is the Jerusalem Post or Times of Israel. Also very good. The Times of Israel, by the way, has a wonderful an option where you can open up your own blog, and it gets you exposure, and that's very good. I've used it too, and I've used it to get connections to people. And it's a good place to be seen and to see. And there are jobs in journalism, advertising, marketing. I'm not too sure about the journalism, but at least certainly not print journalism. But again, check this out. Cynthia, it's a good question. But there are so many different resources. Check them out. Be open to it. And of course, the one thing that I learned before I even came to Israel is this wonderful phrase in Aramaic, which is chavra de chavra, chavra itle, which really means friends of friends have friends. Use your connections. A network, I guess, is the simple English for it. So use the opportunity to network. You can start networking even before you come here. I started networking before I moved to Israel. I started networking for a year before I came to Israel. And I managed to get jobs all through my networking. So it's successful. This was before I even spoke as good a broken Hebrew as I do nowadays. So do it. Find out. Check it out. Somebody wrote Ima Kadima for women out there, a great networking group. And I wish there was a networking group for men as well. You know, we were talking about Ima Kadima was great. We wanted to do Abba Kadabra, but Abba Sababa. All of them are good. Check it out. Check it out. There's good stuff out there. Anyway, I'm going to wish everybody a good week. Thank you for coming in, and onward and upward, because that's what Aliyah is about. It's onward and upward. Shavua Tov.